Hey folks, another Runequest game played at Gen Con. Now, notice I've got my reading glasses on because I'm going to be referring to notes a whole lot for this one. And it may actually run a bit long, so apologies. But this game that I ran was actually the second game of the con that I ran, was the best game I've played out of um, all of my Origins and Gen Con games so far. The players were all really into it. None of them had played RuneQuest before. I don't even think any of them had played Cthulhu or any Chaosium game before either. So they were all pretty much coming from a Dungeons and Dragons background. And as they played, they really got into, I'll call it realism, but the practicality maybe, or believability. There we go. Believability of some of the stuff. And one of the things we talked about was you don't need a critical role table because criticality effects are built right into the combat system. Um, and we actually ran long. This game took 4.5 hours. Luckily, what they were looking at doing after this game, they could actually push off, like go to a different session or something, or they were meeting with somebody, they could do it later. So we ended up playing for 4.5 hours for this game, and even at that point, we had to just tie up the very few last ends very quickly and verbally. So to start off, they did seem to also like the mechanics of the game, which is good. That's one of the things I really like about the mechanics. I did have 5 players, so I was short one. So the PC that did not get played was Vishy Din, the shaman, which is okay. Trying to play a shaman can be difficult, and he actually comes with a whole lot of power. He's got a high llama, which is like this 10-foot tall llama, and it's cavalry trained, so he can do some massive damage with it. And he's got a fetch, which is part of the shaman system, which gives him extra magic points and more spells. And he has essentially a familiar. I don't remember if they called it that or not, but he had a companion. It's an intelligent baboon, which is one of the races in RuneQuest, and he was called Uncle Monkey. So some of the other players have had some fun with that. Okay, so they decide to same intro as last time. The whole horn blowing get together. You come with me. And they decided to go and investigate the scene where the Raiders had attacked, and they made some rolls and were able to distinguish the fact that in all this ground markings there was a scuffle. That wasn't quite like Aragorn in the Two Towers where he's crawling along the ground going, "They did this, they did that," but they were able to determine that in fact the Raiders got involved with a skirmish within themselves. So they know that they didn't talk to the girl, so they didn't know that the whole party was surprised at the fact that Danikos killed these people. They could tell there was a scuffle. There was some kind of argument. There was a conflict going on between the Raiders themselves at the point of the ambush. When they got to the location of the dead woman, they were very interested in trying to take care of the body. They started to build a cairn. They were going to, bury this woman, just by themselves. But they made the roll, saw the shaman, get involved with him, do a lot of discussion back and forth with him. So they were able to learn quite a bit. And then, of course, they go through with the ceremonies on preparing the body and summoning the spirit. And she shows up, and one of the players makes a fast talk roll because, she's, a conflicting tribe. She doesn't really like these Kalimar guys. But they did summon her spirit to put it to rest. And this guy made a fast talk roll because he's trying to figure out what's going on. So he's trying to talk with the ghost. A couple of them did, but only one made the roll. And so she talks with him for a bit, tells her who she is, and she and her 4 friends were had made the decision to go and pay for the death price for the bodies, that kind of thing, because they felt bad that people were killed and they knew that it was wrong. And then she lets them know that Dad goes decided to send the herd north, which is not where they need to go. They need to go west because that's where their tribe is. So there's an argument, and then he slits her throat, kills her right there. They move the cattle north, drag her body away from the fire and campsite. So there's something weird going on. They do find out from the shaman, though, that one of the gray dogs, the stone woman, stay away from that. Stone woman. If you ever see the stone woman, you must run. Shaman is a little crazy, and I love every time someone mentions the stone woman, I go into this whole spiel. Her spirit wanders these bad lands. If you ever see the stone woman, you must run. So it was great, a lot of fun. But every time someone mentions the stone woman, that verbiage comes out. It's great. Well, he tells them about the stone woman having cast a spell on one of the gray dogs, and that's when he came back and said they're going to go north, and there's the scuffle, and he killed the woman and that kind of thing. So this party gathered a lot of information. I don't think they would necessarily have learned more. Oh, they did. That's right. When he turned around to go to his hut, they went with him. So they were able to spend the night with him. But again, they come out in the morning and everything's flushed away, and they have to make the tracking rolls, which they were able to make. This group also, there's a mechanic in Runequest, role-playing Glorantha. Well, they've added in passions from Pendragon, and the concept of the runes are universal and make up everything, including the PCs, and implement them similarly to passions, for example. Whereas in Cthulhu, you can push a roll or use luck points. In Runequest, you can inspire yourself with either a passion or a rune. The example they give in the book on passions is your brother's been kidnapped and you're searching his body for clues. You can use your passion, love, family to modify your search in his rune. And there's a thing about, critical success on the inspiring roll gives you plus 50, a regular is 20, failure is minus 20, fumble is minus 50. And then with a failure and fumble, things happen to your own passions and your own, so it can be kind of risky. You need to sometimes be careful. So this party actually did a whole lot of invoking runes and passions. Not so many passions, but runes fairly frequently to get that modifier to their skill rolls. Some other parties that I've run, because every time we start making skill rolls, I bring this whole inspiration thing up. Have used it on occasion. I've had to remind the parties on top. It's a brand new mechanic, it makes sense. But this group, they bit off on that. They used it not a whole lot, but fairly frequently. Okay, and when this guy that made the fast talk with the ghost is able to talk with her, and then they find out they need to put her to rest. They need to take her revenge on Danikos. They need to free her friends, and then they need to return the cattle to the Kalimar. So it's almost right in line, essentially, with the 3 points of the quest they were given from Zara, the clan chieftain's wife, to follow the raiders, exact retribution, and return the cattle. So not too hard. You got 2 quests you can take care of, together. 2 birds with 1 stone. But after they agree to doing that, yes, of course we'll do that. She points off to the ground by the fire pit and says, if you throw it to the ground, I will come. So the guy wanders over there, and sure enough, there's this pool of blood where she was killed, because she wasn't killed out where she was dragged. She was killed over by the fire pit. Is a small stone, about the size of an egg, covered in her blood. It's, a bit tacky, but it's pretty much dried. So he takes it and puts it in his pouch. If I knew how to properly, if I knew how to properly edit this thing, I'd cut these blank spots off. So I apologize again. Okay, these guys didn't. I was wrong. They didn't follow him back to his camp. They camped right there. And the next morning they get up and follow the trail again. The mud it's all been raining, so it's all muddy, and they have to make their rolls. But a couple of them were using inspiration for I don't know if it was loyalty to tribe or something, but they were trying to modify the rolls to make this tracking. So they got tracking of like 10 or 15. You double it to 20 or 30 because it's still a huge path. And then you add in another 20 points, and you can make those rolls. And they did. And they headed up the road. For this group, I skipped the combat with the rock lizards, just because there's so many of them, and an extra combat's not needed. So I just skipped that one right onto the actual road where they find this ancient road, paving stones separated and broken, standing stones been knocked down, that kind of thing. When they get up finally to the ruins, the old broken tower, the scenario, unfortunately, is called Both Things in the Gen Con books and the online thing, so it can be kind of confusing because they'll come in and we're thinking the old ruins, they're thinking the broken tower, and we all get it straightened out eventually. But just a side note. But when they get to the old ruins, one of the players makes his scan roll and sees this head pop up over the wall. But he made it well enough that he could tell this is a guy, and he was wearing a helmet just like the gray dog woman that was killed. So I guess there's a gray dog guy in there looking around. A couple of them also make listening rolls and hear his boot steps as he runs away. So they don't circumvent, they circle around the ruins, trying to find a back door, a secret way in or something. And they don't. So they end up going up the cattle chute, and a couple of them make rolls and be like, this entrance to the ruins is designed for merging cattle. It starts out wide, goes narrow. It's got a slow slope with a soft dirt ground. Pardon me, with a few weeds and that kind of thing in there. And of course, it's all muddy now because of all the rain. But so they go up there, and there are some more of these standing stones. They check them out, and they're able to get some information from some of the glyphs around that. And as they're going along, there are every once in a while there's these strips of information, pictographs, runes, writing in what's called Old Thealan. Thealan is the culture, I guess, of the ancient people that was here. It's also there's a language associated with it, and a couple of the PCs know modern Thealan. So with Old Thealan, they pick up words and phrases. And I actually had taken a bunch of the information that they used for the description of what does this thing actually say, and then based upon the percentage that the PC had of that of Thealan, I would redact information. So if you only had a 30% chance, you got 30% of the information. One of the PCs is a Lacromite, not priestess, but initiate. So she's pretty smart. She's got 90% her Thealan, so she's only missing 10% of the information. Two of them make their rolls. Between the two of them, they get most of it put together. And it talks about, and this is one of the things that the PCs bit off on, this creature called Idrima. She was a earth goddess demon fighting chaos. And so at this point in all of my games, as soon as the word chaos pops up, I do a little Glorantha Mythology 101. There's a sun god. He's the king of the gods. He's up in the sky. There's the storm god. He wants to be the king of the gods. He's jealous, so he kills the sun god. The sun god goes to hell. There's no more light on the earth or on the world. And so the creatures of chaos start sprouting up out of the ground, causing all kinds of chaos and destruction and bad things. And so Storm God goes, hey, maybe this was such a bad idea. So he goes on a quest down into hell to rescue the sun god. Well, they get down there, and all the demons in hell, they've got light now. They like that. That's cool. They're not in the darkness anymore. They want to keep the sun god. And so they make this deal. The sun god, during the day, can come up and give light to the world, but at night, is come down and give light to hell. That's a really cool piece of mythology. I love it. I tell them that chaos is the bad thing. Being a demon just means where you came from. You know, that kind of thing. Demons aren't necessarily bad. You know, they come from hell. They generally are bad, but not always. I mean, they made the deal to get the sun back up, right? It can't be all bad. But one of the PCs really bit off on this whole demon thing. Didn't like that. Didn't like that at all. Not at all. Okay, so they start wandering around in the ruins itself. And in the adventure, it talks about if the players are searching for anything, they're just searching, then there's a chance that they'll find things. And there's a D20 roll, and I had never rolled on it, so I don't really look at depth. But some things are things of value, obviously, and possibly even some magic items in there, because if they get a critical roll, you only roll the first 10 numbers, maybe, or the first 6, something like that. So I let the players make a scan roll, and if they get a critical, then they notice something. So there's another chance to actually get into stuff. I also have the players every full turn. That's what we're talking about when we're wandering through the ruins, is a full turn, which is 25 melee rounds, or like 5 minutes. I also have them make a scan roll. If they get a critical, they notice one of the standing stones, a ghost-like figure poking out of it. Because the Dreama has these things called dream whelps. And these dream whelps are projections of her spirit, her thoughts, that kind of thing. They've got some of her abilities, but they're not that strong. They're not, really tough. But they can move from standing stone underground to standing stone. And they're spirits, so they move pretty fast. And so she's been spying on them since they got to the ruins with these dream whelps. So I give them a chance, to notice that. Not a very good chance, but it shouldn't be a good chance, because these things are inside these standing stones, just kind of watching and listening and see what's going on. Okay. Oh, but I mentioned they were in the ruins, and they get lost just once. So they reorient themselves and get back up to the tower, and they know the cattle are off to the right-hand side, or to the east. And they get in front, and they also hear the chanting coming from inside the tower. So while they're out front, they hear the chanting, and they're discussing, because they know the cattle are over there, they can hear them too. They're discussing among themselves, well, maybe just grab the cattle and run. The dream whelps hear that. The Dreama hears that. She wants the cattle. She needs the cattle. So she lets Danikos, who's the guy chanting, know, hey, these guys are trying to steal the cattle. You need to stop them. So Danikos, he stops the chanting, and he goes and hides, and he does up his magic stuff. When the chanting stops, the party goes in to investigate what's going on. And for me, this is one of the coolest part of running this scenario. I've got this styrofoam ring that I wrapped up in duct tape, so it's all gray, and I cut a piece out, which is the doorway, the entrance, and then I cut it in half on the other side and duct tape that all up so it folds. So it's like a little C shape, so I can put it in my backpack and bring it around. But it folds open, into a circular room. I just kind of pull this out, flop it down. Okay, and they come into investigation. So they come in and I start talking. The first thing they see, because the top is open and it's wet inside and it's been raining and stuff, and everything's glistening. First thing they see is the round altar. And I mentioned this in the other video, the whole round altar, and I described a little more in depth the statue behind it and all the stuff that's surrounded, that kind of thing. Of course, once they get into the temple, the tower, strike rank 11, the very end of the very first round, the stupa stands. I'm talking about how the skull starts to rise, the bones in front knit together with vines coming up out of the altar, wrapping around and pulling it all together, and then the cowhide off the sides comes, wraps around it, and it turns into this creature, and then the head turns and looks at you. Everybody wants to kill this thing. Everybody. Although that's all it does is look at him. It turns and looks and it just stands around. Well, once they start attacking, it will attack back. It'll defend itself. But still, if they just left alone, it would just stand there and watch, just trying to figure out what's going on. Now, Adrima did, well, it doesn't say that, but she calls these screwball things, because there's she's got a couple dozen of them out there. They're spirits, elemental spirits that move around in the earth, and the center of the altar is just dirt going down. So it's able to come up. And because everything else is stone all around the tower, so you can't really use an earth elemental here. One of them did try at the tower, but the earth elemental is 3 meters wide, and the altar is only 1 meter wide. It doesn't quite fit. So the chaining stops. Come out. Okay, so we got 5 PCs, and the Scrupa stands up, and Danikos is gone, or is not there rather. So 2 of them run up and attack the Scrupa. When they do that, Danikos freaks out and attacks. It does say he tries to do a sneak attack. He failed his roll and that kind of thing, but he moves up to attack. When that happens, 2 other guys attack him, so they've got him bothered. That leaves 1 guy left who's been watching the room and saw the 3 bodies to the side. He goes, checks them out, sees that they're dead, and so he decides, hey, we got to get these bodies out of here. So he starts dragging the bodies out of there. I figure it would take 4, 6, 9, 3 melee rounds per body, kind of thing. And this player, he was sharp. He made a number of these rolls that gave them extra information and stuff too. So, but he's dragging these bodies out, and he says, as he gets them out there, he starts calling out into the ruins. Come in. We need you to come in. We're going to take you home. That kind of thing. So he's doing that. Guys are fighting the Scrupa. Guys are fighting Danikos. I actually don't remember all the rolls that happened with Danikos, but they end up nickel and diming him to death. And they got hurt, but nobody got down in this combat. It was pretty interesting. That usually doesn't happen. Either a party will surprise Danikos, in which case he can't get his magic off and they just beat him up, or like the last video, Danikos is able to cast all his magic and he just tears them apart. But they're fighting with him, and they keep him occupied. And the guy's fighting the Scrupa. The Scrupa, since they're this unusual, weird elemental spirit thing, have no hit points. They have no constitution. They've got limbs, and the limbs have hit points and armor points based upon what they are. They're all these bones, that kind of thing. But 1 point of armor, 1 hit point. So they whack and they hit one of the, and it's got 4 arms. So it can make 2 attacks around. As long as it keeps an arm on each side, it'll keep doing 2 attacks around until you get rid of all the arms. Well, they'll have just 1 attack. Obviously, it gets down to 1 side. They'll only be able to do 1 attack. So they're fighting this thing, and they hit an arm, and they do some pretty massive damage. Excuse me. And the way the whole combat system works is you roll the hit, you roll a defense. If the hit supersedes the defense. Either the defense failed or you get a better hit than the success on the shield or whatever. But the Scruba don't have shields. They're not going to parry with their arms. So they don't even have dodge either, if I remember right. So there's no defense on the Scruba part. So they attack and they hit an arm. They do some pretty decent damage. And we talk this through. Okay, it's got 1 point of armor, so that drops it down to 8. It's got 1 hit point, that drops it down to 7. That's more than 3 times, so you're able to completely mangle, more than 3 times the hit points to 1. So you completely mangle the arm, but the arm can only take 2 points of damage. But since the thing doesn't have hit points, I like keeping track of these 2 points of damage that they do. And they do that to a couple of legs, maybe it's abdomen and an arm or two too. It's they're at this thing, beating it up. And it's just, swipe every once in a while kind of thing. I'm trying to figure, why is this thing not going down? Why is it not dead? Yeah. Oh, and this reminds me. Previous video, I forgot to mention this. The party cast a fire elemental. One of the party members can cast a small fire elemental, and he casts it on the Scruba. Now, the fire elemental does damage directly to your hit points, not to any limbs in their hit points, to your hit points. And the Scruba have no hit points. So there's this fire elemental, and there's the Scruba standing inside it, and obviously made of bone and the vines and the cowhide, but essentially it's magical. But so it's standing in the middle of the fire elemental, and it starts to smoke and stink, and it gets singed, but it's just standing there the entire time. The other party was fighting with Danikos, and the one player was free is trying to save the girls. What's going on? Just standing there, and it's not getting killed. What's going on? Okay, 2 rounds after things start happening in the temple, Adrima wakes up and she speaks to everyone because she's doing it mentally. And she does it first in Earth Speak, and then in Old Thealan, and finally in Hortling, and everybody understands Hortling. So eventually her message gets across. But I did a Google Translate on this little speech she does for Norwegian and Greek. And so I butcher this, obviously. So I anglicize these Norwegian words and these Greek words. So I'm out there speaking these words to them, and they all kind of look at me wearing go, does anybody know Earth speak? And one of the players, actually I think maybe 2 of them do, but one of them made his roll. And so he's able to communicate with her. So he's talking out loud, but he's hearing the words in his head. Actually, everybody's hearing her words in their head. Sorry about that. I had set my alarm. It's now 6:30 in the morning. I'm supposed to be getting up, but I woke up almost an hour, about 45 minutes ago, and couldn't go back to sleep. So I figured I'll just come down and make a video. So excuse me for just a moment as I turn this thing off so it doesn't happen again. There we go. Okay. He's communicating, and he sees the dead bodies over there. And it's obviously been sacrificed to cattle because of all the blood. And so he's still battling with this whole demon aspect, and the human sacrifice that obviously occurred. And Idrima is an earth goddess, and she's of the earth, and she's trying to get that whole thing across, and the fact that she's simply looking for cattle to be sacrificed to her. And what about these dead bodies? Well, Danikos did sacrifice them, but I didn't ask him to, that kind of thing. And so he's really battling back and forth inside his head on how much do I trust Adrima and how much do I just say bullshit? And we attack. And so that goes on for a couple rounds, them communicating, trying to figure out what is it she really wants. And he specifically tells me that he's trying to delay. So he's talking around her conversation, trying to figure stuff out about her and what's going on and what she needs and what she wants and all that kind of stuff, while the first player's dragging those bodies out, and the 2 guys are fighting the Scruba, and the other 2 are fighting. Actually, by this point, they've killed Danikos. And so after he gets done dragging the bodies out, he goes back in and drags Danikos' body out, and then he calls out to the ruins. It's safe now. You can come in. Danikos is dead. And so I make a roll. And the guy that's out there, he's actually insane. His intelligence has been dropped way down because of all the things that he's been involved with and enthrallment with the Dreama and all kinds of stuff happening. He's just running around in the ruins crazy. And there's an opportunity of him just freaking out and attacking the party. But he didn't on this one. But I made a central for him, and it was a special. So he heard him, and oh, okay. So a couple rounds later, he shows up at the base of the temple, the tower, and the dude runs up and gives him his hand, helps him up, and says, "We gotta get you back to your village. We gotta get your friends and their bodies back to the village. Will you help us?" And of course he will. He wants to get out of there. He wants to get home, and he feels terrible about the dead guys, and he knows what happens because he was there. The Danikos had sacrificed them and all that kind of stuff, and so the party needs him as backup for their whole story. So they've got 4 bodies, 3, 4. Yeah, they got 4 bodies. They've got 1 live gray dog, and they decide retribution's been made. There's the cattle. We can take them back. And the friends, while we can't really free them, we can get them back home and free their spirits. Kind of like what they did with the gray dog woman out and over by the shaman. So they've got this plan. They've got everything taken care of. All you do is get the cattle and go. So everybody, they stop fighting this group. This is not doing any good. And his abdomen's destroyed, so he's just sitting on top of the altar. He's not going anywhere anyway. And so they all leave. They all go out to the cattle and they start to lift up the gate. When they start to lift up the gate, one of the dream elves comes out of one of the standing stones, because there's a couple of them around right there, and tells them to stop. Stop. You cannot take the cattle. They are mine. That kind of thing. And they have a little discussion with her, and the smart guy of the group decides that, hey, maybe we should bring the gray dog ghost. And so he throws down the rock, and the ghost appears. What do you need? What can I do? He says, attack that thing. And so they get involved with spirit combat. And the dream elves, they've got a d6 plus 6 power. So you're talking about 9 on average. A normal person's got 8 to 12. The ghost, I think, had a 12, because they don't give stats, so I just kind of guessed and gave her something. But they do an attack. The dream elf fails. The ghost is successful, so the dream elf takes damage, and it takes off because it's not a fighter. It's not what it's designed to do. It's a communicator, it's a spy, that kind of thing. So she goes back into one of the standing stones, and so and I'm going, if we open the gate, more of them will come, right? Or from a different standing stone or something. So what are they going to do? And they decide maybe we should just destroy these standing stones. I probably should have done a luck roll. And I did this a lot with this party, having them do luck rolls, which is power times 5. On, was there something there? Did you remember this? That kind of stuff. It was great. We used that a lot. It was a lot of fun. And so I did that with Ernalda's the goddess. Well, one of the PCs who's a priestess of the earth goddess Ernalda. And yeah, she makes it. So I say, if you destroy these things, that'll probably really piss off Adrima. And Adrima is an earth goddess. She's essentially a servant of Ernalda. And, so he's got this huge conflict going on in his head about, how much do we do? How good is this thing? How bad is it? What can we do with that kind of thing? And so he runs back into the temple to talk to the statue. And, I probably should have animated her at this point. I didn't. We were running out of time. We were well over 4 hours at this point. So he goes and has a conversation with her, and somehow they get around to the point of she needs half the cattle. And they agree, okay, we'll leave half the cattle. And then their plan is to take the bodies and the live gray dog to the gray dog village, explain the whole deal, everything from they did a raid and killed herders to they were going to sacrifice these cattle to this demon goddess up in the Starfire Ridge, the Badlands. And they make a deal with the dream of they'll bring more cattle, and so they go to the Grey Dog. This is all verbiage now at this point. They go to the Grey Dog village, and make a deal with them that they need to send some 30 head of cattle up to the tower for sacrifice to Adrima, so that she doesn't curse the land and cause violence and all kinds of destruction. The one thing we didn't cover is the fact that they need to leave somebody to be the sacrifice. And some of my other games actually had Adrima do an enthrall on the priestess or some other priest-like character to stay and be the officiator for the sacrifices, that kind of thing. It's not like they sacrifice the cattle all at once. They do like one a day kind of thing, or it doesn't really say, so we could probably raise it out to one a week maybe or something, because the blood sacrifices are what feed her and keep her going. So and worship services occur basically once a week with a high holy day every season. And so there's that kind of thing I could tie in if I got that in depth with it. But these guys, they pulled this baby off. This was the only group so far that has ever actually gotten bodies to take back to and decided to go back to the Grey Dog village and make a deal with them to help send up cattle. One group previously had decided that we're going to do some raids. We'll raid the Grey Dogs and we'll bring the cattle up here ourselves, that kind of thing. But it was a perfect ending. These guys, they did it right. It was a lot of fun. They all had a great time. It ran over time and they loved it. But that was Gen Con, The Broken Tower, #2.